All right, guys, welcome back to the Daily Mastermind. George Wright III with your daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and education. Today, I want to get your week started by asking you how your thinking has been going in your business and in your life. In other words, I like to start Mondays, and if this is your first time listening, a lot of times I'll refer back to the 12 prosperity pillars that I've kind of put together over the last 25, 30 years. And those are principles, core principles. I'm not going to take credit for them because I picked them up from 25 years of really working with some great thought leaders. But these prosperity pillars that you'll see in a poster that I have every once in a while are core fundamental values and principles that I tend to start my week with and start my day with. And so each week on Monday, I want to try to give you something foundational that you can use in your life. And one of the things that I like to cover is this sixth pillar, which is I create an attitude of abundance. And the reason I bring that up is because what I've found with most people, including myself, is that when you get up in the morning and you get ready to start your day, do you ever have those mornings, probably more often than not, where you get up and immediately you have all of the problems, the priorities, the responsibilities that you have in your life. And so you immediately go into this mode of trying to identify where it is you're going to make progress, what you're going to focus on, what you're going to do, especially if it's a Monday, where are you going to put your time and energy? And I think a lot of times we don't stop to think about the fact that we're starting from a place of scarcity. We're starting from a place of limitation. There was a lot of talk in a lot of masterminds that I've been a part of, around this idea of abundance and having an abundant thinking, because we don't realize sometimes that the place we're coming from is scarcity. You're coming from, what do I have the ability to do? What do I have the resources to do? What are my circumstances? What are my problems I have to overcome? And when you're in that space, a lot of times you can't find the solutions. You don't think outside the box. And so I want you to be really conscious this week as you go into the week into this area of, are you thinking from a place of scarcity or abundance? Do you feel like your mind, and this is a comment that I'm going to make to you that I heard this last week that I really picked up on and I liked. Is your mind focused on your limitations or your leverage? It's a concept I really love. In other words, a lot of times we are focused on our limitations. We're focused on the things that we have at our disposal, the knowledge that we have, the experience we have, the connections we have, the money and resources we have. And most times those are limitations. Those are absolutely things that will determine how far you can go, how much you can do. And it's so important for us to be able to get past our limitations and actually think from a place of abundance, where you start to learn to leverage what you have. In other words, how do you leverage the resources you do have? The money, the time, the focus. If you don't have a lot of time because you're doing a bunch of different things and you got kids and you've got a family and you've got, work and responsibilities and a side hustle, how do you leverage the time that you have? Rather than thinking about time as a limited resource, think of it as something you can leverage. Put the time into things that duplicate your efforts. So I want you to really ask yourself, are you thinking from or arguing for your limitations or the leverage that you have in your life? And it's very important. I want to make another point to say here that I've learned that if I want to have an abundant mindset, I've got to have my definiteness of purpose. Napoleon Hill talks about in Think and Grow Rich, having a definiteness of purpose. Are you focused on something that you're trying to accomplish, or are you just going through the motions? Even if you have a business, sometimes we lose track of that definiteness of purpose, that thing that we're trying to accomplish that is going to help us to create the life that we're meant to live. And so it's important that you have that definiteness of purpose and also fuel your passion with your why. In other words, what is the purpose behind what you're trying to do? When you have a definiteness of purpose and you have a reason behind it, and you've got that motivation and inspiration, it will remind you to focus on the big picture. So another concept I want you to just take when it comes to this abundant mindset into the week is the idea of, is your thinking a 2x or 10x thinking? I've referenced this a bunch of times by Dr. Benjamin Hardy and Dan Sullivan, because I think it's so important that when you're setting your goals this week, for example, are you setting goals to increase what you're doing for results, or are you thinking out of the box and trying to set goals that will pull you in the direction you're trying to go. Dr. Hardy talks about a mastermind he was doing with Joe Polish, where they were finding some ways, and they were sort of brainstorming the idea of how they could increase their profits 10%. So everyone in the group was kind of going around and talking about how they could increase their profits in their company 10%. And they came to a gentleman who said, that's really the wrong question. It's really the wrong question. He said, the better question is, how can you 10x your profits? Because the challenge with increasing your profits 10x or 2x, if you're looking to just grow your business, there may be a lot of paths that will get you there. And the challenge with a lot of paths is that you tend to get distracted, and you tend to have too many ways to get where you're going to get. And so with 10x thinking, how do you 10x your profits? There are very few ways to get there. And 10x thinking involves thinking from a standpoint of setting goals that you might think are impossible. In other words, if you think it's possible to get 2x, or it's possible to get your goals, then there's probably a lot of ways you can think of to get there. But when you start to think out of the box and you think of things as 10x, things that are impossible to get, all of a sudden, the number of paths, the number of things you can focus on, the number of things that you can put your time and attention into are very limited. And that's the goal behind getting a 10x thinking and an abundant mindset, is you've got to eliminate the 80% of your life that's just giving you average results. And you've got to start to focus on the 20% that is getting you 80% of the results. You've got to learn to focus on things that are innovative and things that you can do that will leverage your time, that will overcome your limitations. And so I really want you to go into this week asking yourself, how do I create more of an abundant mindset? How do I go into this thinking out of the box, 10x thinking, things that are probably impossible in my mind, but that's just because my mind is what's got me where I am. And the mind that I want to have get me where I'm going, I have to grow into. And so you have the ability to do this. I know you do. I know that you have. Think back in your life, how many things you've overcome and grown and done. But it's only by pushing past your limits that you can get there. And you can only do that with an abundant mindset. So that's my thought for today. I just wanted to plant that seed in your mind. So everything you're doing, whether it's your family, relationships, your business, your wealth building, how do you stretch your mindset and become more abundant in your thinking? Get out of the box, 10x what you're trying to do. Find those impossible goals that you can stretch for. Worst possible scenario, you're going to hit your 2x goals. So that's a thought I want you to maintain with you. Do me a favor, share this episode, share this show. Help us to grow our influence as far as our community so that we can create more impact. And I want you to know, I really do believe that even though you may feel like you're on your own, even though you may feel like you're grinding and sometimes you don't have people that are, thinking the way you do, that's why I created the Mastermind community. It's here because there are many people just like you that are trying to accomplish their goals. They feel like they're struggling. They feel like they're hitting, bumps in the road or roadblocks, but you can push past it. It's never too late to create the life that you were meant to live, but you've got to start to change the way you think, you act, and you respond to things in your life. And that's what this episode and these daily Mastermind podcasts are for. So anyway, have an amazing day. I'll talk with you soon.